Good morning. It is Friday, August 28th at approximately 10 minutes to 10 in the morning. My name is Larry Cedar, and I'm back with you for another session on the relaxation technique which I call scanning, SQANNING, which uses the incremental release of muscular tension to achieve a deep state of physical, emotional, and ultimately mental calm. That's why we're here today. Another session in scanning. Today should be interesting. And I'm going to tell you why. I practice this regularly. I look at it like the piano. If I wanted to become a really great pianist, I would practice all the time. There's no other way to do it. You just have to practice. You don't practice when you feel like it. You practice to get better at a very difficult technical skill. So I consider scanning a somewhat challenging skill, and I have noticed that the more I practice, the better I get at it. And my goal is to become really good at it because I've seen the benefits of it. The benefits of inducing a deep state of physical relaxation in order to induce a corresponding state of emotional and mental calm. I see enormous benefits from it, and I see that it is a skill which has to be practiced to be improved. And so I practice, and I do it every day. And here's the key point. Even when I don't feel like it. That's important. That's important. In fact, and this is what I've realized about this particular practice, which I call scanning, resistance to practice, and this is important, resistance to practice is a sign that you really need to practice on any given day. So I say that because today I really don't want to do this. I'm very resistant. It's very strange because I make it a point of every day sitting down and doing a session of scanning for myself personally and also what I call my public sessions. I make a point of doing it religiously. It's a drill. It's part of my day. It's in my schedule. And what happens when you do that is there's going to be days when you just don't feel like doing it, particularly scanning, particularly this practice. I have noticed. Now, it's one thing to not want to practice piano or things like that, but what I have noticed that all I'm doing here is inducing muscular relaxation to achieve a deeper state of mental calm. Why wouldn't I want to do that? Why would I not want to do that? Why would I not want to do that 10 times a day? And that's the interesting thing about scanning. It's a barometer of sorts. Again, this is all about being either contracted, squeeze your hands together, or expanded. Scanning is all about expansion, the opposite of contraction. I've spoken about how when you're contracted, you tend to want to hold on to it as a place of security and safety, even if it's not good for you. So when I go to scan and my body resists, some part of me, some aspect of me says, I don't want to do this today, guess what? I am in a more contracted state than I even realized. There's no reason to resist. This is something which ultimately feels good. Why wouldn't I do it? Unless my body was in a contracted state. My point is that sometimes you will be in a contracted state and not even realize it. And the beauty of practicing scanning is it will tell you where you're at. It's a barometer of sorts. So I can't explain it, but today I woke up in a very contracted state, physically, emotionally, mentally. Now, if you'd said to me, how you doing? When I got up, I would have said, I'm fine, I feel great, I'm going to get on with my day. But when I went to sit down to scan, I felt an immediate resistance. Like, I don't want to do this. And I do this all the time, and I know the benefits of it, but some part of me was resistant, which I've learned to take as a sign that I am indeed, on some level, in a contracted state, and I would benefit enormously by expanding. So that could be, and I'll figure this out for myself as I go, that could be an emotional sort of contraction on some level over the course of the evening in my dreams or whatever. I pulled in to protect some emotional aspect of my consciousness. I don't feel particularly physically tight. I'm not really obsessively thinking about anything. On a very subtle level, there's a sort of emotional contraction I've pulled in. Some part of me doesn't want to open up and expand. And, we all feel that way sometimes. You'll ask someone, how you doing? They'll go, fine, just kind of, back off. I don't feel like talking. I've pulled in. So this is an excellent sign. Again, there's a lot of things that are counterintuitive about this practice. Your body, mind, emotions send you a signal that tell you to do one thing when you in fact know what would be better for you is to do the other. So in this particular case, I'm feeling contracted. I want to withdraw. I don't want to expand. I'm verbalizing it because it was on a subconscious level till I went to scan and felt this resistance. And so that's a sign to go. Let's do this. So I'm just saying that because I think it's important to be aware. Some people get very excited about this technique. This is the best thing. It's so great. It makes me feel so good. And then suddenly they put it away and they don't do it for like weeks. and I won't hear from them or talk to them or see them in these sessions or hear any feedback from them. And I realize the same thing has happened to them possibly, which happens to me. This was great, but on some level my body said, this is something that opens me up. I don't know that I want to always be opened up. So you pull away from it. As wonderful as it felt, you pull away. And I discovered that for myself. I'm subject to the same sort of experiences. So I'm very resistant today. So here we go. So this whole practice of scanning is based on the theories of Thaddeus Golas, Golas, who wrote The Lazy Man's Guide to Enlightenment, that says at any given moment in time or space, anywhere in the universe, things are either in a state of contraction, squeeze your hands together, or expansion, release. That's it. Based on that, I developed this physical technique, which tunes me into my physical state of being, picks up on where I'm contracted, induces a state of expansion, which in turn opens my mind and makes me feel calm, still, and at peace. So that's what scanning is. It's the incremental release of muscular tension. Muscles being the perfect metaphor for this contraction-expansion idea. Muscles can either contract or expand. That's all they do. And you can't do both at the same time. So once you begin to expand, you have stopped contracting. So that's what we're going to do. Expand. Whether I like it or feel like it or not. I may be smiling, but inside I'm going, I don't want to do this. Resistance. Resistance. The surest sign that it's time to proceed. Resistance is like striking gold in the scanning process. Resistance means you've stumbled across some aspect of your being which is holding, resistant, contracted, that needs to be expanded. So here we go. Squeeze your hands together tight, 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 tight. Okay? Tight, tight, tight. That's contraction. Now that's the state we put ourselves into 90% of the day. This is how we proceed with our day. We check our emails, we post, we tweet, we write, we talk, we relate, we build things, we destroy things, we exert ourselves as human beings. This is a form of contraction, the putting together of thoughts, ideas, actions, words to advance a goal. There's nothing wrong with contraction. It's the stuff of life. When you stop contracting, you're dead. The problem is we become overly contracted. We become physically, emotionally, mentally overly contracted. And then we are constricted, restricted, restrained, confused, ineffective, limited, in denial, in a state of what I call no. We feel rigid. We feel unhappy. So how do you know when you're overly contracted? Generally speaking, you feel bad. You feel bad and you want to feel better. You want to feel good. How do we do that? We move in the opposite direction. We expand. How do we do that? Simple. Just decide. 3, 2, 1, release. Just note the difference between the sensations of contraction and the sensations of expansion. You don't even have to describe them. Just note them. Drop your hands, relax, and take 3 deep breaths. Sit for 15 seconds in complete stillness and silence. This is killing me. I really don't want to do this today. I have to laugh, but that's just the way it is. So you've just expanded 1%. And that's what we're going to do today. We are on a continuum. In our lives, we continually move between contraction and expansion. This is what we do all day long. We become overly contracted. We become stuck in a state of overcontraction. Now, typically, when we feel bad, when we're overly contracted, we can do any number of things. The typical go-to things are have a shot, smoke a joint, take a pill. Go to a masseuse, go to a chiropractor, take a vacation. We need to expand. You can do that chemically. You could do that through travel. There's a million ways to expand. Our hobbies, our habits, our hobbies are ways to expand. Do something you enjoy, something that makes you feel happy, something that you actually are attracted to and want to do and feel good about. Expansion. Okay, so we just go back and forth all day. When you are overly contracted, you are feeling bad and unhappy. This technique uses the expansion of the muscles as a metaphor to move ourselves from a contracted state into an expanded state. We're not thinking about the mind. There's no thoughts. There's no theories. There's no gurus. There's no books to read. There's no papers to write. There's no gurus to consult. We're just using our muscles, the simple function of our muscles to expand our physical being, which what I've discovered will in turn expand your mind. The mind is a muscle of sorts. It holds on to obsessive thoughts, anxieties. When you relax your mind, it releases those thoughts, they float away, and you feel calm, still, at peace, clear-minded, calm, and happy. That's all we're doing. Squeeze your hands together again, tight, 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 tight. This is contraction. This is contraction. So see what it feels like. Nothing wrong with it. But when you overly contract, you feel uncomfortable, rigid. Perhaps you're holding your breath. Perhaps your thinking is clouded. You're anxious, having obsessive thoughts or obsessive feelings. You're rigid. You can't solve problems. You're not engaging successfully with other people or your work. So what do? Using the muscles, we bring ourselves into an expanded state. 3, 2, 1, release. Note the difference. Pressure's off. Take a deep breath. 3 of them. 2, 3. 15 seconds of complete stillness and silence. Don't move. Don't make a sound. So again, I'm gonna discuss on a personal level what's going on for me today, so that perhaps this will bring some clarity to this process. Again, when I started today, which happens often, I really didn't want to do this. I still am feeling resistance. It's as if I tucked myself away in some cave and I don't want to be pulled out into the open. Still feeling that. An emotional resistance of sorts. And I had a night of some very intense dreams, and I can't even remember them, but I do remember being very disturbed by them. And I think on some level, I think what's happened to me, if I could just analyze myself, is on some level I pulled in emotionally to protect myself from what was sort of an anxiety-inducing evening. And I've just stayed there. I've locked in. So the reason I'm resistant to this process today is because it's asking me to let go, open up emotionally, physically, and thereby emotionally and mentally, open up, come back out into the world, and be once again receptive to whatever comes to me. Right now, I'm sort of emotionally closed off. I protected myself, and that's the best analysis I could think of at this point. I will say that already I'm feeling a little better. Fundamentally, this technique, if you could do nothing else, just take deep breaths. Just take deep breaths, and then sit in stillness and silence and repeat that. Cycle through that. At its root, these are expansive steps that will pull you out of a contracted state. So let's just keep doing this again. We squeeze our hands together, remind us what it feels like to be contracted. Tight, tight, tight. And also remind ourselves that we are in complete and total control of our consciousness. We can change it at any moment simply by 3, 2, 1, releasing. I've just expanded. Drop your hands. Take 3 deep breaths. Another. 1 more. Extra credit, 2 more. And lastly, expansion. 15 seconds of stillness and silence. If you feel a little dizzy, that's fine. You're shifting consciousness. It can be unsettling. And I'm feeling better already. And I'm trying to describe it. You know, I talk about being in a state of no. Resistance, contraction, no. These are all contractions. Resistance, no. Rigidity, inflexibility, but primarily resistance, contraction, same thing. A state of no. No. Someone suggests something when I try to do something to myself. No. Resistance. No. And I don't feel that so much anymore. Just from these series of breaths and stillness and quiet. And I think what comes with that sense of contraction, that sense of resistance, is a sort of unhappiness, a sadness, maybe a little bit of anger. But again, it's a resistance. It's a resistance. And we all feel that way sometimes. It's a form of protection. You know, we're little children at heart in our souls, and it's like closing, slamming the door and hiding in the corner, and mom saying or dad saying, come on out, it's time for lunch. And I saying, no. It's a very childish emotion. But it is what it is. It's a sort of no. And as I begin to expand, I don't feel that so much anymore. If someone says, let's go do this, I'm like, yeah, whatever. I'm starting to feel more agreeable emotionally. Just describing to you what's happened to me today, because I started out this session by saying I didn't want to do this session. And resistance is the surest sign to me that I need to do a session, that I need to expand, that I am in a contracted state. If I'm saying no, it's the time to start saying yes. So it's worked. That's why I love this technique. It's so simple. And if you want to gauge where you're at emotionally, physically, mentally, start a session. See how you feel. If you find yourself going, I'd rather not, there's something else I want to do instead, or this feels really terrible, you're probably in a contracted state and you should proceed. So let's continue. Squeeze your hands together, tight, 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 tight. Really tight. So contraction, resistance, no, denial, rigidity. All the same thing. Squeeze tight. Now my hands are already feeling better. This felt uncomfortable when we first started, but my muscles have relaxed, so everything's functioning a little more easily. There's nothing that isn't improved by being in a more physically relaxed state. That's a rule, that's a law. I stick by it, and I will for the rest of my life. If this technique has taught me anything, it's that nothing isn't improved by relaxation. My muscles just feel better. I feel this is pleasurable now. I feel as though I'm kneading dough. I'm making a loaf of bread. It just feels good, whereas before it felt kind of uncomfortable. But we're going to expand. 3, 2, 1, release. Drop your hands. Now we're going to take 5 deep breaths, followed by 30 seconds of stillness and silence. Here we go. Expanding. Coming out of the cave. Moving into a state of yes. 4. Last one as deep as you can. 15 seconds of complete stillness and silence. The more still you can sit, the more silent you can be, the better. Make that 30 seconds. So why stillness and silence? So these days, we all know that we will busy ourselves with any millions of things. We're all very busy, particularly with our phones. We're on our phones, checking our email, checking the internet, checking the websites, playing apps, playing games. If we're not doing that, we're playing video games, or we're watching television, or we're talking on the phone, or we're going somewhere, doing something, playing golf. We have to have an activity. We have to have a thing to do. Why? Why? Part of it is constructive. Part of it is pleasurable. Part of it is to distract from actually feeling ourselves. We're terrified of actually feeling ourselves. Activity is a contraction. Stillness, the lack of activity, is an expansion. When you sit in complete stillness, you are in fact opening up yourself to the world. You're saying, I am not doing anything but being available. That's an expansion. When you make yourself available, you feel things. That can be scary. When you make yourself available and still, you experience yourself. Many of us don't want to do that. We're uncomfortable actually feeling ourselves. Maybe we don't like ourselves on that particular day or any particular moment. We don't want to feel that. Maybe opening ourselves up to how we feel can be sad, disturbing, uncomfortable. So we avoid complete stillness because stillness is a form of expansion. The reason I include stillness is because it forces you to stop contracting and to just be, which is the ultimate expansion. I just exist. I'm not defined by any activity at this moment. I just am. Coinciding with that is silence. All day long we talk. We type, tweet, post, words, thoughts, same thing, contractions, bringing together of thoughts, ideas, to advance an agenda or just to distract ourselves, to fill our consciousness with placeholders that again allow us to avoid just experiencing the nothingness of just being. So let's review. These are the preliminary steps in this scanning process, this expansion process. We squeeze our hands together just to indicate that this is one of the two main forces in the universe, contraction. And then after squeezing for a while and seeing what that feels like, really tune into it, we 3, 2, 1, release, to indicate to ourselves that we are in control of our consciousness. We can expand at any time. We just did. It was a small amount, but it matters. You can't expand and contract at the same time. So if you have expanded in that moment, you are not contracting. and we register what that feels like. So we physically moved ourselves into a state of expansion, however small that might be. We drop our hands, we take a series of deep, deep breaths, which are expansive by nature. Look, you're expanding. You're opening yourself up. You're expanding the musculature. So deep breaths are the fundamental root of this technique. We do that several times, and then we sit in stillness and silence, because as I just explained, stillness is the opposite of action, which is a contraction. Silence is the opposite of thoughts and words, which are contractions. So we've just literally pulled ourselves out of our contracted state into a slightly or possibly more expanded state. That's the preliminary phase of scanning. Now, I started this session by saying I didn't want to do this today. I felt contracted, and I think as a result of having a rough night, dreams or whatever, I'd emotionally contracted. I didn't want to come out of that cave. I've moved through that. I feel better. I feel fine. I could do this for an hour. It feels great. Just from the simple act of expansion. Again, the main point being that do not take resistance as a sign to stop. In this particular process, resistance is a sign that you must proceed. It's the perfect time to scan when you don't want to scan. That's all I'm going to say about that. Now we move into part 2 of scanning, what I call the nuts and bolts of the technique, and that is the muscular relaxation, the actual release of the musculature. Again, we are physically moving ourselves into a more expanded state. If you feel resistance, if this makes you uncomfortable, that's a good sign. Keep going. I am the master of evasion. I am the master of distraction. I do it all day long. It's part of the reason I developed this technique, because I saw that it wasn't doing me any good. I had to force myself to learn to expand. I've seen the benefits. I'm still resistant to the process, but now I know it's good for me, so I proceed. We're going to relax specific muscle groups of the body, one by one. We're going to move through the body and incrementally induce a state of muscular release. We're going to start with the face. The hands are easy to contract and release. We use them all day long. Now we move into the muscle groups. You may or may not be as familiar or comfortable with that process. How do you release a muscle? Some of us don't think about it at all. If we need to relax, we go to a massage therapist. We go to a chiropractor. We take a drink. We smoke a joint. We have no idea how to induce muscular relaxation in ourselves. We have no idea. We just don't do it. We spend 90% of our day contracting. So that's why you practice to get better at it. So if you don't feel anything at first, don't be discouraged. You're not used to doing it. As you practice, you will get more and more familiar with this process of incremental release. Squeeze, 3, 2, 1, release. That's all you're doing. And I snap my fingers because I want it to be like a switch. If the muscles of your face are active, if you're using them, and I go 3, 2, 1, that switch turned off the power to my muscles and allowed those muscles just to sag. That's what we're going to do all over the body. Okay? Now, you carry all day long a low level of muscular tension. We all do. It's a form of preparedness for the day, for life. We are muscularly prepared to handle whatever comes up. It's rare that we are in a completely relaxed state. It's difficult to achieve. Chemicals help, but chemicals have a side effect, as we all know. So it's better if you can learn to do it naturally. So let's practice. The face. 3, 2, 1, release. Now you see that? Switch. So the practice of scanning is tuning into that feeling, getting better and better at that feeling, like learning a dance. First time you ever learned a dance or a song, it was uncomfortable, weird, odd, you didn't do it well, and then you got better at it, and pretty soon you were an expert. Same with this. You're going to get better and better at incrementally releasing the muscular tension in your body. And we're going to cycle through the body. We're going to do this once today. But as you practice on your own, you're going to go through the muscle groups, take an assessment, how much have you expanded, and do it again, and just keep repeating. You will go more deeply and deeply and deeply into the state of expansion until at some point, and it happens, I try to get there at least once a day, you will completely relax. Your body will say, "Oh, I see where we're going. This is good for me." And it will just go, "I'm all in." And your body will just let go. There's no feeling quite like it. And you will realize how much tension you've been carrying all day long, unnecessarily. The face. 3, 2, 1. Release that drooping sensation. We're going to just move through these zones. The top of the head. If you don't understand or have a concept of what it's like to release the muscles of the top of your head, don't worry about it. Just put your focus there and just try to imagine the muscles being held a little bit. And when you snap, when you hear the snap, just turn off the switch to the power to those muscles and let them just sag over the top of your head. 3, 2, 1, release. And as you release a muscle group, you may begin to suddenly feel that muscle group. Tension eliminates feeling. It's just the rule of the way the body works. When you're tense, you cut off feelings, you cut off emotions. In return, when you release tension, you feel emotions, you feel sensations. So as you begin to release these muscles, you'll start to feel the muscles. You'll start to feel. You'll have a more visceral experience of your body. We tend to cut ourselves off from feeling our body, partly because it's uncomfortable or sometimes, but partly because we just don't know how to do it. Top of the head. 3, 2, 1, release. Now we're going to move to the back of the head. Tune into the back of the head. We hold a lot of tension there, just from our day. It comes up through our neck. 3, 2, 1, release. You'll see that you can do this. You can do this. You may not have been aware of the control you had of your body, but you're going to see you have a lot of control for the neck. 3, 2, 1, release. Now you may have felt your shoulders drop when you did that. The body is very sympathetic to itself. If something's happening up here, the foot feels it. If something's happening in the knee, the arm feels it. It's all one unit. So as your body begins to, in sympathy with the rest of your body, relax. Let that happen. 3, 2, 1, the neck. It's okay to slouch. It's okay to move. We're coming back into our body. We've been living up here, and now we're coming back into a more visceral, physical experience of our body. It's why we take drinks. It's why we smoke joints. We want to feel. We want to feel ourselves. We want to feel alive. We get cut off from our feelings because we're so actively contracting and making things happen all day. That's why we need vacations. Get back to ourselves. 1, 2, 3, 4. The shoulders is 5. 3, 2, 1. Release. Take a moment to feel it. 3 deep breaths. 15 seconds of complete stillness and silence. I'm laughing because I've had people come to my session and say, hey, Larry, that looks interesting, but I had to, I got a book, man. I got stuff I got to do. I can't sit and relax. No, I got this, I got that. This scares the hell out of some people. It scares me sometimes. I just sit still, do nothing, feel, breathe. Are you crazy? My brain will explode. I understand. The shoulders, 3, 2, 1, release. And I talked about being resistant to this today when I started, and that resistance is a sign to proceed. I'm still feeling lingering resistance, feelings of resistance. Truthfully, I got to be honest with you, they're feelings of fear. I feel afraid. This process scares me on some level. Makes no sense. There's nothing risky happening to me right now at all. I'm in no danger. I'm not even in danger of exposing any emotions or secrets here publicly. I'm not afraid of that, but it's not going to happen. This is just a feeling I'm having. This was the contraction. This is the place, the resistant place I moved myself into over the course of the evening as a result of some, really intense dreams. And I'm still feeling it, but I'm feeling better. Zone 6 is the chest down into the stomach and waist. 3, 2, 1, release. I guess, in a way, you could say, I feel like crying. That's honestly the emotion I'm having. Something tucked away, expanding, is forcing the opening of these feelings, a relaxation. Again, tension closes off feelings and emotions. Relaxation, in turn, reveals them. But emotions are only scary when they're emerging. Once they're out, they feel great, so don't worry about it. Zone 7, the back down into the pelvis. 3, 2, 1, release. Flip that switch. Deep breath. And now I'm guiding you through this at a pace that feels right to me. Obviously, when you're doing this on your own, you guide yourself. I can't know what you're feeling, where you're feeling tension, or any of that. This is just a sort of guide, but you guide yourself ultimately. You customize this to suit your needs. The challenge, the technique is simple. The only challenge is staying with it. You will feel a million forms of resistance. You will create a million reasons why you don't have time to do this. Not now. I'll do it later. This isn't really helping. I don't feel anything. What's the point? I'm bored. etc., etc., etc. If you were to say those things to me now, I would not be surprised. I say them to myself about this technique all the time. Doesn't work, not feeling it, don't want to, million other things I'd rather do. Resistance, a sign to continue. The last zone, zone 8, down the legs, across the knees, and into the feet. 3, 2, 1, release. If you can relax your feet, my friend, you will uncover a goldmine of benefits. There's a million nerves in the feet associated with the organs of the body. Foot health heals the body. So work on those feet. They may feel like blocks of stone to you when you start, but if you focus, you can release the tension in your feet. Let's really think about the feet. 3, 2, 1, release. Deep breath. So that's all you're going to do with this process. And, I only stay for about a half an hour usually because I don't like to overtalk it. Words are contractions. Words ultimately are just another form, a cage of sorts. So I try not to overdo it. I always say that the perfect session would be for me to sit with you and we would sit in stillness and silence for a half an hour. Some people call that meditation. Also valuable. My suggestion to you is that when you practice this technique, start with whatever is most accessible and simplest to you. If doing the incremental muscular release seems too complicated or challenging or inaccessible, just take deep breaths. If taking deep breaths is too uncomfortable, just sit in stillness and silence. These are all forms of expansion. 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 How will you know when you're expanded? Easy. You'll feel better. It's so simple. You feel bad, and then you feel better. I feel better now. I feel better than when I started, for sure. How? I feel calmer. I feel less resistant. I'm happier. I feel more still. I'm certainly not avoiding this process. Yeah, we could do it for another half hour. It's fine. It feels good. So I've moved out of a place of no into a place of yes, out of a state of contraction into a state of expansion. So I started this session. I try to start every session with a thought of the day, shall we say, a theme. I started this session by saying that resistance to this process is the surest sign that it's working, because you are uncovering pockets of tension and resistance and contraction within yourself that need to be released. Resistance is a goldmine. If you feel like you're saying, no, I don't want to, then you've really hit on something, and get to work. And the reason I practice this every day, even when I don't feel like it, is because I use it as a barometer to see where I'm at. If it's easy and it feels great, so be it. I'm in a great place. If it's hard, I don't want to, I'm resistant, I'm saying no, I know I need to really practice. So it's a fantastic barometer of your state of consciousness, your state of being. So don't be afraid to hate it. Don't feel bad about hating this process, or feeling like it doesn't work, or feeling resistant to it, or getting tired or bored of it. These are all excellent signs that it's working. Watch for resistance in your life and take it as a sign to proceed. Move past the resistance. We're smart. We're smart creatures. But we have physically instinctive ways of protecting ourselves. One of the main ones being contraction. Emotional contraction, physical contraction, mental contraction. These are ways we protect ourselves from the pain and difficulties of life. It's fantastic. We're survivalists. We need to survive, so it's okay. But we're smarter than that. And we know that sometimes we become overly contracted, and we will benefit by expanding. And that's why we scan. So that's it for today. Thank you for visiting. Thank you for joining me in these sessions. I do it on my own a couple times a day, but I like to do a public session as well to share it because I feel like it's worth sharing, and I hope it's a benefit to you. And I hope I don't say anything that is too stupid or weird, but I'm on a process of discovery myself, and so this is a grand experiment, but it's one that I've found to be very successful over the past couple of years, and so I plan to continue. I will repost this session on my Facebook page if you missed any or all of it and want to see it again for 24 hours. And then I will post it permanently on the Scanning Facebook page, SQANNING, where a lot of previous sessions are, if you're so inclined to look at them. And if you like and follow, you'll be alerted whenever there's a new session. I also have a YouTube Scanning page. And again, it's SQANNING, a relaxation technique which utilizes the incremental release of muscular tension. Incremental, the smallest amount. No amount is too small. The incremental release of muscular tension to achieve an ultimately deep state of physical, emotional, and mental calm. Remember, the mind is a muscle of sorts. It will follow suit. As you relax the muscles, the mind also will relax and expand, and all your obsessive, negative, compulsive thoughts will just float away. And you will find your place, you'll find yourself in a place of peace and calm and stillness, clarity, openness, awareness, ultimately joy. It's a great place to be. Try to bring yourself there at least once or twice a day. You deserve it. Which leads me to my last thought of the day. Rule number 1, the most important thing in the universe is that you love yourself. This is what you were given. Embrace it, love it, for better or worse. Just love it, and everything will improve. And when you've had so much love brought into your system, there's an ultimate amount of love. When you brought so much in that you feel just terrific, and there's so much that is spilling over, you have extra, pass it around to the rest of us, because we could all use it. That's it for today. Have yourselves a great weekend, and we'll see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.